Hello friends, welcome to the M.A.R.E podcast. Before we get started, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Don't forget that you can find more about the M.A.R.E project at www.marehamburg.com, and you can support the project and this podcast through Patreon. All the links are in the description. Enjoy!
Hello friends of the M.A.R.E podcast, welcome to another episode. Today it's a very special episode. I have Hara Kaminara here with me. Hara doesn't identify herself as an archaeologist, but she is slowly getting into archaeology. She's in a very different field, but I think we will have a very, very interesting conversation about maritime stuff. Can I say maritime stuff? Or generally arts. Yeah, so we will talk about arts today. So first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me, Yorgos. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here and to talk to you. So thank you.
Of course. So let's start by introducing you. Do you want to say a few words about who you are, where you're from, and I don't know what are you doing right now? Start from who you are and where you're from.
Okay. So I'm Hara. I come from Greece, but my mother is from Cyprus. But from a very young age, I actually lived outside Greece. So I grew up in Brussels, maybe shall I say a little bit about what I've studied and what I've done?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. Please, yeah.
Okay, great. So after finishing school in Brussels, I was always very interested in arts, and I went to England, and I did my bachelor in fine art printmaking. So I was very interested in actually combining different types of artistic languages in order to tell stories. And in the end of my studies, I was actually feeling very disconnected, let's say, in a way, between the art world, which I felt was a little bit like a bubble, and the outside world, which was all the rest. I mean, it's a bit a naive idea, but I felt it. So slowly I started being more and more interested in photojournalism and photography. So one of my early big projects was actually going to Palestine. I went to Palestine with an Israeli organization. And anyway, it was a very interesting trip, and I came back to the UK with a bunch of film photographs that I developed, and I started combining drawings and collages of my photographs and wanted to make like a comic book about this trip. And then I really started trying to find ways about creating narrations, but with the combination of different visual languages and perspective, let's say. So I don't know. I will speak, and if you think that I'm going in a direction,
no, go ahead. This is very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started working more and more with photography and photojournalism. I did a master's in photojournalism in London College of Communication, and then something else happened, which was very actually influenced me very much. It's that during that time is when in Greece, it was around 2007, 2008. So in Greece, first you had the huge fires that burned like a lot of the land. I don't know if you remember. And then 2008, it was this tragic event where there was the assassination of a young student by a policeman. So the massive riot started in Greece, and the next year, the Greek crisis started. So for about 2-3 years, even though I've always kept a very strong link with Greece, but I've been living outside Greece. at some point, Greece started became the main, like a main topic in mainstream media. So I would be outside Greece, seeing what the media portrayed of Greece, and then I would go there and experience a different reality. So then I started another project called Crisis, which again, it was more or less the same concept as the project in Palestine, but I would take pictures. This time it was digital photography. I would take pictures of what was happening in Greece, of the demonstrations and all of that. And then I would do collages with my pictures, draw over them, write things, or tear apart things. Anyway, manipulate them by hand in order to create a story. My story. It's always very personal.
Mm.
Um. So anyway, this to say that there was different types of projects that I was dealing with. There was another one called Mnemosine, Mnemosini, which was again, this was mostly done in the context of a residency in a museum in Brussels, where I was combining. I was thinking about the idea that actually history is like a patchwork, this textile. In Greek, we say kurelu. So it's like the remains of different fabrics that are threaded together. So I had this idea that maybe history, it's this. It's the remains of different small stories, personal stories that are all threaded together and interlinked. Um, why am I saying all of this? Yeah, I'm saying all of this in order to arrive to the fact that slowly, progressively, video and filmmaking was becoming more important in my work. Um, I also took part in a master class in Greece. I don't remember when it was. I think it was, I wrote it somewhere 2015, in which I worked with anthropologists, and the goal was to make a short film about a story in Greece. In We had like 1 month in order to film, edit, and finalize the project. And I think that's when it was my first real project in Piraeus. So in Piraeus, which is the port of Athens. Um, shall I go on?
Yeah, go on, go on, go on. Yeah, I'm collecting questions. Just go on.
Okay, collect. So yes, so I started. Yeah, okay. So this was also a very important thing for me to get introduced and to learn how to make films, but through this anthropological and anthropological and ethnographic approach, which has to do with, first of all, taking time with the community you are filming and observing, and also making the process of the film part of the film itself. So you don't pretend or try to create an absolute truth of a situation. You put it becomes evident that you are, like, as an individual from a specific perspective, that you're trying to stay a story, and the link between you and the story is always in one way or another visible. So this was something very important um, for me. And then, so during all this time, like, I had finished my studies, I left the UK after a brief stay in Greece, um, which was brief, unfortunately, due to the economic situation and the fact that it was very difficult to have an income. I was working and living in Brussels, in Belgium, and I was working as a photographer, a photojournalist for different newspapers and stuff like that. And in one of the documentary reportages I had to go and photograph, it was actually in the European Parliament, and it had to do with citizen initiatives in citizen initiatives in order to help the different humanitarian crises and ecological crisis and all of that. And there I met the organizers of SOS Méditerranée. So SOS Méditerranée is sorry. It's okay that I speak endlessly.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
okay. So I was saying that I met in this reportage. I met organizers from SOS Méditerranée, and SOS Méditerranée is a European humanitarian NGO organization, maritime organization, which was actually founded in 2015 as a response to the humanitarian crisis in the central Mediterranean. Because there was an increasing number of shipwrecks, and people dying, a huge amount of people dying and disappearing at the sea. So this was in 2017. So sorry, just to go back. So when I met them, it was 2017. The humanitarian crisis, or what was called the refugee crisis in the Mediterranean, had started in 2015 with people mainly from Syria crossing from Turkey to Greece. When I joined SOS Méditerranée, it was 2 years later. So the main migratory route was mostly from Libya going up to Malta and Italy. But because of the distance between Libya and Italy, like it's much further. It's was and I think it still is one of the deadliest routes that people are taking in order to reach Europe. So.
Excellent. Okay. Let me
Yeah.
give you a break. Let me give you a break. I think so. It becomes apparent why I invited you here. I think with all the things that you said, because you're a person with fine arts background, a person who likes to capture moments and create something out of those moments. And I am seeing how your maybe career or intrigue, like artistic instinct, led you to deal with things and with events, which are admittedly sad events, but that have to do with the sea, that are somehow related with the sea and the maritime environment, be it people who live in a port city, or people who are lost at sea, or who find hope in the sea. And you like to capture those moments, and people in this podcast usually talk about, harbors and ships and amphoras and transport, and we talk about the past and the people of the past, and we're like, oh yeah, that was so exciting. They were living in this spectacular harbor and this amazing ship. They would sail it. They will sail with 100 and 200 amphoras, and they would take them there, and it's all exciting and it's fun, and we love it, and we'll keep on doing it. But very importantly and ethnographically, you show something that was always there, but obviously it lives nothing in the archaeological record, right? We'll never find it. And that is migration. That is the relationship between the people and the sea when they're living by the sea. And sometimes we try to grasp it in maritime archaeology through theorizing about things. But you are part of what you explain, like we're part of that kurelu, as you said, part of textiles. You're putting your little textile in the history by capturing moments and creating moments and making something out of it that it stays behind. And I think it's a very important thing to talk about. So you left the story at SOS Méditerranée, and then you went on to do what? I'll let you finish the story, reach present, and then go into more deep and details about that.
Yeah, thank you. No, what you say is very beautiful, and it echoes many things that I've been thinking about. And that I've been trying to deal with in my work. So yes, to come back maybe on SOS Mediterranee, because it echoes what you've just said. So I was on board this ship for a total about 3 months, 2017 and 2018, and I was there as a photographer, basically part of the rescue team. So yes, just to mention, SOS, their mission is basically three things. It's to save the people that are in distress in the water, to protect them once on board, because so everything's coordinated. I'm not gonna go into details, but everything's coordinated by the Italian maritime coastal thing. And also, and then the third very important thing for this NGO is to bear witness, because it's as you were saying, it's all these stories of individuals that are lost at sea, like nobody knows about it. We very often talk about numbers, about x 100,000 or I don't know what of a number of people that are lost, or like there's a lot of graphs and statistics, but there is very few stories about individuals. Anyway, so I was on board to do that, to take pictures of the daily life and of the rescue missions, and then of the people on board the ship. And I found myself in a very bizarre and difficult position, because on one hand I was thinking like my role here is essential. I need to keep trace and I need to photograph and video whatever is happening and whatever I see. But I felt also very awkward in the sense that I had a lot of power. I was behind the camera photographing people that were suffering, that were nearly, very close to death, and a lot of them had lost people, very dear people to them, in like hours or days just before I met them. And it was it was very difficult for me to find my position, and as I said, I knew I had to do it, but I was constantly thinking about this power relation that exists in when you're saying the story of somebody else. Either if it's just words, or even more so when you're behind the camera. But it's like, and I was thinking about the fact that when you say that you're photographing somebody, you're shooting him, like, and I felt like a bit, okay, there's something there. Anyway.
Okay, so wait.
Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Yeah. Ask.
So this was maybe, tell me if this is true or not, but was this maybe your first big project that your art stopped being personal and it started being about someone else? You're bearing witness to someone else's story. You were not in the center of the story, or I'm not reading this correctly.
It wasn't. It wasn't the first time I had my first project was in Palestine, so I was completely filming and photographing somebody else. But I had never seen and felt something so violent as that. I mean, here it was like in the extreme of what humanity has the most horrible. It's like, you really saw people like dying in front of you, but you were not allowed to, like, let's say there was ships around of big ships, and that they would hear Mayday, Mayday on the VHF,
yeah.
And they wouldn't reply because they would then end up in political situation, where trapped between different countries and different. So it was. You're right in the sense that I had never felt it so much. It was the first time that it was so violent. I mean, yeah. And so the thing is that it was horrible. And the thing is that actually with all the horrible thing that I came to see, it was also, there was some moments of pure humanity, let's say. Because first of all, you would see the people rescuing these other people that were in distress, and like the solidarity between those two groups. But another thing that was really strike me was that when the rescued people came on board, one of the first things they started doing was to sing and to pray
Mhm.
and use my camera as like a tool in order to keep trace of their existence, of them being alive. So they would look at my camera, so I felt like they were looking at me, and they would start to pray, and they would start to like leave messages in the forms of song to their mothers, to their fathers, to their brothers, saying I'm still alive and I made it. So anyway, all this to say, in order for me to say that when I did the second trip, and by then I knew I was not gonna go back to the ship. Uh, I ended up having all these songs and dances and music from the ship. So I decided I had to do something. I wanted to use this material and to make something and yeah
Mm.
to make a story in order to be able to share this. And my first reaction was to do a very simple edit where I would take all these songs and put them together. And for me, it was, super powerful and it needed nothing else.
Uh.
But I showed it to a very good friend of mine, and she replied something very stupid and naive. But she said that, okay, if people are singing and dancing, it means that things are not so bad. Like, it's okay. Something
All
like
right.
this. So then it took me about
Okay.
3 years to find a way to explain to this friend that things are not okay. and in order to do this, I actually realized that I had to appear in the film I was trying to make, and not appear like I didn't film myself, but there's a voiceover. I speak in the first person and I explain my perspective, why I was there and why it was so difficult and why am I trying to do this. And so this was my first film, basically, like long. It's not so long. It's between a small and a feature film. It's about 50 minutes,
Yeah.
but anyway. And there I combined a lot of the questions and of elements that are important to me. So the sea, the metaphor of the sea, what that space, the Mediterranean, as a historical and as a geographical location, um,
Mhm.
and what's the point of trying to keep trace of elements of the contemporary world and making stories, saying stories,
Oh yeah,
basically. Something
absolutely.
like
I mean,
this.
I can't stop thinking about the paradoxical nature of, someone setting off in the sea. They know that the sea is dangerous, but they also know that the sea gives them hope. They go to someplace better. And similarly, they are rescued in a very bad situation, but they start to sing. It's a
Mm.
kind of like that duality of that. There's hope, but it's also very dangerous. And again, there's hope, but also people are dying around me, and I lost friends and family and all that. So it's a very touching. So is this can someone find this? Can someone see what's the title of the film? Because I
It's
imagine many
called
people will want to see it now.
it's called Letter to Nicola, because actually, just for the story, it's that I realized I found out I was pregnant after the second trip, so that's why I knew I wouldn't be able to go back on the ship. And after trying different types of like documentary narrations in order to say that story, somebody suggested to me, they said that, why don't you try to say the story as if you were speaking to your unborn son? So, and in the end,
Yeah.
that's more or less the way I used in order to say that story. So it's
Oh yeah.
I can share like, I think the film, it's on the website of the producers. I share that link with
Hmm.
you, and
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
it's not
I will.
easy to find it, just text me and I will
Oh yeah.
share it.
Absolutely. No. I will put it in the description. All right. So, wow, that was quite the trip. That was quite the emotional trip. Okay, so you produce a movie, the movie's out. Then what? Then what happens in your life?
So then I started showing the film in different festivals and different places. And one of the places that asked, okay, first it was a documentary uh, festival. It's actually a film festival in Marseille. And part of this film festival, they organized seminars, joint seminars with the University of Marseille. So they asked me to go and do a presentation there of the film. And through that presentation, I got in touch with a very interesting man who's called Thierry Roche, and he is actually an anthropologist teaching a theory of filmmaking and of documentary filmmaking at the university. And speaking a bit with him, he told me about the fact that I don't know how common it is in other universities, but in Aix-Marseille University, they do what they call in French something like a creative PhD research thing.
Yeah.
And I had a good connection with him, and I had thought about that in the past as well. So I thought that might be a good opportunity for me to continue continue working on my personal projects, but also diving a bit more into this idea of of using the sea basically as a way to help me understand the world better and maybe narrate the world in a different place, connecting different elements, different people. Just another thing is that at the same time, I came across the work of another professor called Philip Steinberg, and he's a professor of political geography in the UK in Durham University. And so he's interested in space, place, and how people interact basically with their surroundings, but through he does a lot of research on the Arctic and on the oceans. And I find his writings incredibly interesting because I think it's very academic, but there's something poetic about them. And he speaks a lot about the sea. Sorry. And so there's specifically one text called Of Other Seas, Metaphors and Materialities in Maritime Regions. And he talks about this concept, about the fact that the ocean can be a place which helps us shape an understanding of the world, which a contemporary world which has increasingly interconnections between different people, different times, different species, and and about the fluid temporality. And anyway, I found this fascinating, so I felt like that might be a good starting point.
Okay, interesting. So before I go into the more meaningful question, so the creative thesis is that means that you are writing a thesis, but you also have a creative part in it, or is it that you submit a documentary at the end? How does it work?
It's both. It's actually
Both.
both, and I think it's something that more and more university and art colleges are exploring, but it's still a new thing. So I think that different universities or colleges have different kind of interpretation of what they expect and what they it's still, I think, in experimental um, level, the whole thing. But basically is what you said, you have to produce like half of the research is on, it's an academic writing piece. You have to produce a writing, like very normal academic thing, and the other half of the time you spend in creating a film or an artistic whatever piece. So
Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense. So now you're working on something else that is part of your thesis now, right? Correct.
yeah.
Okay. And that, so you don't need to share details about that if it's not ready, if it's not like, or if it's in the, I don't know, you have an idea, a title, something like that?
Yeah, so maybe I will change the title because it's a bit. Anyway, for the moment, I've been thinking about, like, I've put it in English, even though then it continues in French. It's about, I've called it "Look to See," and "See" it's SEA. So it's basically starting about these ideas of Steinberg and about how, yeah, the sea can bring us different ways of understanding our place within this world. Um, the idea was to go and explore different perspectives on the sea and the Mediterranean region. So basically,
Okay.
through an ecological perspective, through speaking with oceanographers, geographers, but even like fishermen and marine people working in the marine industry, and having their having, yeah, a conversation with them about their approach to the sea and to that region. So this was the starting point. Obviously, I mean, maybe it's not so obvious, but in the beginning, I wanted to do something that incorporates the whole Mediterranean, everybody, all the
Everybody.
professionals, all the little shells and seagulls, and and slowly it has to I had to make it more specific. But one thing that happened, I think it was 2 years ago, and which was very influenced me a lot. It's to to find out that there is, first of all, this master's degree in Aix-Marseille, which is focusing on underwater archaeology in the Mediterranean. So I went to look a bit at their work and photograph, film, and just spend some time with them in one or two sites they work on, mostly in Aegina, so an island, a Greek island not far from Piraeus. And there, it like this blew my mind, and there was a lot of things that echoed in feelings and thoughts that I had before about, again, the elements about how to narrate and what it is to do documentary filmmaking, and what for. And I realized, I think I realized, but maybe other people won't think that, but that documentary filmmaking, anyway, in the way I approach it, is a form of contemporary archaeology, because I realized that archaeology is not so much, I mean, it is as much as it is to excavate and to find new artifacts and to find objects and all of that, but it's also to preserve those artifacts or their image or their stories. And I thought, okay, this is what actually I think documentary is about as well. So, and then I thought maybe like the camera, like a camera, it's actually an archaeological tool. The way you guys use things to, I don't know, your tools. That this is a bit
Various
a
tools.
metaphor. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. No, I first of all, I fully agree. Obviously, that's what I said. Your bearing witness is as important as, gathering evidence, I think, because we may not. Now, someone may say that, oh yeah, maybe it's not really archaeology because it's like it's a very contemporary, but it eventually will be archaeology, and in the very near future, right? And if we don't care about the evidence that we basically would not be able to see otherwise, like the stories of people, like what really happened. If there's no people like you who film and record and are there and witnessing it and recording it and creating art and documentaries out of it, then there's no way of an archaeologist in the future finding out. So you said it a lot. The project sounds exciting, absolutely fascinating. I honestly hope you would be able to contact every little seagull at the end of the Mediterranean and talk to everybody about anything and everything, because that would be an exciting I don't know, for me, it would be very exciting to see how people react and feel towards the sea, especially from like the fishermen to like, I don't know, people to sailors, to just people who live by the sea, people who make their living out of the sea and all that. But I'm sure that all the interviews and details you'll get will be equally amazing, and it will equally contribute in probably an anthropologist theorizing about the relationship between people in the sea in the future. So just like kind of wrap this up, I really want to know, you in this part of at this stage of your PhD, this part of your life, you've seen the sea at its worst and at its worst and at its best and everything in between, and you are very interested in looking at the sea and talking about the sea and realizing what the sea as a metaphor, as a place to connect, as a place to isolate, as a place to do a whole bunch of things to people. What does the sea mean to you? Haha, difficult question.
Silence. Yeah. Doof. It's a very good and a very difficult question. Like, it's everything. It's a metaphor of everything, but on the same, like I could say, it's a metaphor of life. It's a metaphor of life in all its best and all its worst. But it's also not a metaphor. It's actually, it's a. I was gonna say it's a thing, but it's not a thing. But I was gonna say then it's a person, but it's not a person. It's
just there.
it's just there, and it's looking at us. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I will be able to reply with a better answer in a couple of years, or when I will have finished with all this research. I think it's. I'm hoping that through it we will be able, like, to. I mean, we have a way, and Steinberg says this very beautifully and intelligently. We keep thinking of us, our humans and our cities and our worlds as a very fixed thing, like that we are in a fixed position, and that the sea is the contrary of this. And actually it's not. And maybe changing this perspective will actually help us. Yeah, I don't know if it will help me anyway define the sea in a better way, but maybe it will help me define myself and my world and my perspective in a better way. So yeah,
I fully agree with you, and I hope that the sea fascinates you so much that you never are able to fully comprehend it and fully explain what it is exactly, because I think that's the beauty of it. We can't. It's there, as you said. It's there. It's not something. It's not a person. Even though, if I want to speak archaeologically, throughout history, people like approach the sea as a person, as a god, as something in between, as a thing, as a monster, as a good thing. But it changes so much because the sea needs a protector, or the sea itself is a protector, or the sea's danger. Now I'm referring to like how people felt towards the sea. But this is something that's not only in antiquity. It's something that I would say that if you ask an old fisherman, they would still say that, oh yeah, that the sea is a dangerous place, or the sea is a wonderful place. Or if a sailor is like stuck in the sea for so long, like, I hate it. I hate the nothingness of it. While someone who is by the port and looking at the beach every day, they're like, this is the most beautiful thing in the world. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for talking to me. Thank you very much for talking to everyone who's listening. And I will make sure to add a bunch of links to your work, and I hope people take a look at it. And I hope you manage to have the results you're looking for, because it sounds exciting. And I hope to have you again when you're done with your PhD and you present your thesis and you say, this is what I've done. Here it is. So thank you very much.
Thank you, George. It's been very interesting, and yeah, it's a real pleasure to share all this with you and anybody who's listening. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of the M.A.R.E podcast, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.